Hello and howdy, everyone. A couple nights ago, saw one of my favorite films of all time. I think one of the great films of all time, and that's Porco Rosso. I think it's Hayao Miyazaki's best film. At least it's my favorite film of his. You know, you're basically with Miyazaki, and you know, picking a best. It's like, which is, you know, the greatest. You know, you're comparing great works of art across the board. It's like, how do you compare, you know, all of these films when they're all just tremendous and, you know, above the bar of what anyone else can pretty much do. So it's like, you can only compare Miyazaki to Miyazaki, because everyone else falls way short. For me, Porco Rosso is where the money's at. I obviously, Spirited Away is the competition for me, and again, My Neighbor Totoro. You know, it's basically, you can't pick between those three for me. I do, and I hope I will explain that in a second, but I think Porco Rosso's got the edge on them. I came to Porco Rosso a little late. This is the first time I've ever seen it in the theater. I was totally excited. Porco Rosso's been on my dream list to see in the theater. I would pray to the movie gods that Porco Rosso would come to the big screen, and it finally did. It came with a double bill with Spirited Away, and when I saw that they were, you know, going to show Porco Rosso, I didn't even care about Spirited Away. I was like, yeah, okay, I'll watch Spirited Away, but I'll watch Spirited Away to get to Porco Rosso. Porco Rosso was in Japan. It came out in 1992, I believe. It never had a theatrical release in America. The first Miyazaki film to have a theatrical release was Princess Mononoke, and it did not go to too many places. I believe it was just New York and LA. So the 1992 Porco Rosso had no chance of being seen in America, and as far as I know, it wasn't commercially available in America until 2000, basically after Spirited Away. You know, Princess Mononoke was, you know, his introduction to America. You know, I'd never heard of Miyazaki at all until Princess Mononoke showed up in my video store in town. And so in that wake, well, then some years later, many years later actually, Spirited Away would come out. And then after Spirited Away came out, and we realized, you know, that, hey, this guy is a genius, and his films are all great, we should see them, you know, we need to know him. Then all of his stuff started to come out, and I'm sure that if you wanted to find it in bootlegs or, you know, underground, you know, places you could, for the first half of my life, that was not an option. You know, I again, did not know Miyazaki existed until Mononoke. But after Spirited Away, Disney, you know, took over. I don't know what happened there, but they got the rights to release all the Ghibli stuff. That was not true of Mononoke. I'm pretty much sure that Disney had nothing to do with Mononoke coming over here. But after Mononoke came over here, then they got involved. So they released and re-released all of his previous works. And that's when you know, because Spirited Away just blew me away. I couldn't believe it. It was kind of like nothing I'd ever seen before. And I became, you know, relatively obsessed with Hayao Miyazaki, and I had to see all of his films, and I did in the, you know, months after seeing Spirited Away. One of those being Porco Rosso. I can remember watching Porco Rosso the first time, you know, like it was yesterday. It's the most thrilling of his films, I think, for it to compete with, you know, like nail-biting tension I think you have to go back to his like debut with the Lupin the Third tale he did, the Castle of Cagliostro. You know, that was pretty much an action picture. Porco Rosso is pretty much an action picture, and it's you know, white knuckle pretty much most of the time, but it also has, you know, a beautiful love story. It's got everything, you know, it's just got everything, and I think it's unique in the Miyazaki canon because, and then this is why I think it's his best film, and I don't think this is an original thought on my part. I think it's kind of, you know, can be easily seen if you do any kind of you know, digging into Miyazaki, is that Porco Rosso, I think, is him telling his own story. You know, Miyazaki invents like entire worlds of fantasy. You know, he's a George Lucas, you know, auteur who can create worlds, and that's what he does. He, you know, creates worlds that these characters and, you know, the viewer can go and exist in for a while. You know, pretty much all of his work is you know, takes place in some, you know, alternate, you know, fantasy land, you know, reality. You know, which makes it so special. You know, it shows the real world as magical. But here, you know, I think it just tries to be real. It tries to depict the real world with, you know, again, someone being different, someone being cursed. And I think that, again, it's just him telling his... I think Porco Rosso is Miyazaki's autobiography, in a way. I think it's how he sees himself. I think it's his most personal tale. I think that, you know, if you even hope to know Miyazaki, it's to watch this film. The film is about... I forget to tell what the film is about. Okay, so... Porco Rosso is the best flyer, the best pilot, the best pilot in the world, the best fighter pilot, whatever. You put him in a plane, he's the best. Some while ago, he saw something he wasn't supposed to see. You know, he crossed over a line, you know, on the brink of death, and the price for crossing that line, for seeing what no living person sees, he was cursed, I suppose you'd say, to look like a pig for the rest of his days. So, you know, he was a human, and then he was cursed, and he was turned into a pig. And now he basically just lives a life of leisure, picking up, you know, jobs, gigs here and there, bounties, I guess you'd say. And there you go. And this is just another one of his adventures. The whole story starts out with him trying to help out, you know, a boat of shipwrecked girls, you know, and there you go. And A leads to B, leads to C, and then it's just... Well, that's what Miyazaki always does, is his stories are just so flawless. You know, they just move right along. It's just so smooth. And so, yeah, so Porco Rosso goes to pick up a few girls, and then all of a sudden, you know, he's thrust into an adventure that will change his life. I just, you know, talked about Spirited Away. And I always talk about, while it seems like in every Miyazaki film, that there comes a point where everything in the frame is in motion. That's not the case here. In fact, there wasn't like really, from what I can remember, one instance of that happening, of what I'm talking about. Instead, and this is why this film stands out, I think, in his work, is instead of everything moving, everything vibrating with energy, only one thing is moving in this frame. And he wants that one thing moving to be perfect. And it's the central focus of every shot, and it's moving elegantly and perfectly. You know, I don't know how else to say it. But usually, you know, there's always movement. You know, always movement. Like the camera moving through, you know, a scenario, a scene. Where Porco Rosso is mostly the camera is still and we're watching something, you know, happen. It seems more traditional, where just the camera is stationary and then the action is happening instead of the camera moving through the scene. I don't know if I'm explaining that in any kind of intelligible way, but it's stylistically different than any other Miyazaki film. I mean, maybe I could compare it somewhat to Nausicaa, because I thought Nausicaa was relatively still, you know. But I think Porco Rosso is unique in his career, both in terms of the style of animation, his style of direction, the focal point and meaning of the story. You know, there's no. I think this is one of his only films to not, you know, not harp, but you know, not have the environment. You know, Miyazaki is an environmentalist, and there's no real element of his eco-friendly stories here. His themes, I mean. You know, it seems that he's exposed here. And I think that that's what I love about it the best, is that he's out of his element and wanting to try and do something new and different and tell something, again, more personal, that I think he just wants to share his heart. I'm totally pumped. Miyazaki's next film, actually, he's got 2 films scheduled to be released in 2013. I don't know if that's going to happen. I certainly know it's not going to happen here in America, because everything takes so damn long. But Porco Rosso 2 is his next film. He's got another film, too, that I can't remember the name of right now, but I heard that Porco Rosso 2 was going to be his next film, like, you know, 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and it's already the best film ever, and I'm trying not to think about it, because I don't want my expectations to be up, but again, there's going to be a Porco Rosso 2, and I cannot wait for that film. You know, I can't wait. I can't wait to see what it's going to be about. I can't believe that he's doing a sequel, you know, to one of his works. You know, I don't know what else to say about it. I just was thrilled to see this on the big screen. I'd seen the film several times. The American translation, the DVD, can be easily found, I would think, or rented. I can't recommend it more highly. On an off note, the English translation and the release done by Disney, you know, again, they pay so much respect to Miyazaki that they don't really mess with his films, and they do the utmost care and respect with casting. I'd say that Porco Rosso is played by Michael Keaton in the English translation, and whatever, you give a job to Michael Keaton and I'm gonna love it. So I can't recommend seeing Porco Rosso more highly. It's one of my favorite films of all time. In fact, I would probably put it in my top 5 definitely, and maybe even top 3. For me, it's a desert island movie. If you had one movie to watch for the rest of your life, on a desert island, what's it going to be? And I'd say that Porco Rosso would probably go down to the wire for me. I don't think it would beat Jaws or Doctor Strangelove, but it would probably make it, to the last round, to the final 3 at least. So I was just overjoyed to see this on the big screen. It looks so beautiful. And again, just to try and talk about Miyazaki films and trying to describe their beauty is pointless, kind of. I just think they should be seen without question. I think it should be required viewing. And I think that Porco Rosso stands at the top of the heap, basically. So I think it's one of the great films of all time. I don't know what else to say about it other than, you need to see it. It's beautiful. It's just a work of art. So that's Porco Rosso, and it's an 11 for me, 10, whatever. Have a good one.